Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of Ask Anna, and this is actually the last time I'm filming here. As of this coming Sunday, I'll be filming at a brand new super cool location. You guys will have to stick around and see where that is, so send in your questions during the week and I'll be filming them every Sunday. I'll have cool guest speakers coming on. It'll be a lot of fun and I hope informative as well. Alright, got some great questions this week. I'm going to start with more macro topics and then delve into the more micro ones, because as always, you have to put the world into context and the macro drives the micro. So first question is from my friend Boris, and he asks, how do large companies like Amazon avoid paying federal taxes? Now, I love this question very much because it ties in to all the big picture dynamics that we're seeing at play in our economy right now. So the answer to this question that most people would probably have in mind is one that gets into the particulars, how they're using tax credits, R&D investments, all these things. That's actually not the answer. Those are just the details. The real answer of how Amazon avoids paying federal taxes is that it can afford not to. They can. That's why they're doing it. They can afford to pay the army of lawyers to set up the complex structures to go and dig into the complex, corrupt tax code that is our reality and figure out how not to pay. And that is their right, and you would do the same if you could. But the even bigger answer to this question, how this all ties into everything that's happening, is that this all is symptomatic of what we see in latter days of empires, which is where we are. And I don't mean this in any apocalyptic sense of the word, but the nature of the world is change. And we're all living, we've all been enjoying and living in the post-World War II, post-Bretton Woods, U.S. hegemony universe. And as we get into the latter days of the empire, which we're in, and this is normal, history is nothing but change. Look through any multi-hundred-year period and you're going to see shifts in the world order. And when you get towards the end of an empire, you see these bloated bureaucracies that really exist. Like, what is our taxation system today? On a personal level, it's an inefficient confiscation of your money. We all know the government does not use it well. So you get these complicated, corrupt tax codes that you can take advantage of if you can afford, like Amazon, to hire an army of lawyers and set up complex structures and so forth, and thus avoid paying those taxes. Now, small businesses cannot afford these lawyers or these complex structures or anything like that, and they are left paying the taxes, right? So this further fuels that wealth gap I've been talking about that Corona has been accelerating. When you have bloated bureaucracies and complex, corrupt structures in place, large entities can take advantage of them, pay less, more entities cannot. And now, double whammy here, small businesses have been much more affected by the government mandated shutdowns during Corona than entities such as, well, Amazon has done very well. But small businesses in general are bearing the brunt of these shutdowns, and they don't have the army of lawyers to deploy to take advantage of our corrupt, bloated tax system. So this is what we're seeing, the division in wealth, and this polarization that we're also seeing in concentration of money amongst a few large businesses because they can play the game that has now been set up. Ray Dalio has actually been self-publishing a great book about the changing world order. It's on his website, check it out. And he identifies 3 factors in place towards the ending shift of an empire. And they are, 1, out of control monetary and fiscal policy, where you see artificially held low interest rates and sky-high debt. We have that. Check. The second you see is widening gaps in belief systems and wealth in a country, and just social polarization. We certainly have that. And the third factor is the emergence of a new superpower, a shift in hegemony, and we have that. So this is, in my opinion, a 5 to 10 year shift. Corona is an episodic event that is sitting on top of structural issues that were there, challenges that were there before on a global scale, and we're in a major shift right now. Nothing bad, it just is what it is. This is history, guys. Just be aware of what's happening. So that is the answer to the Amazon question. Next question from Diana Helliwell. Apologies if I've mispronounced your name. She asked my thoughts about buying waterfront properties in Miami in floodplains and how that affects values. So I also like this question because people, I think, believe that the existence of floodplains affects values perhaps more than it does. In areas like Miami, where we have lots of floodplains, I don't see that like specifically affecting properties. Values, it affects them less than you think. The median time that a homeowner in the US holds on to a property is something like 12, 13 years. People think on shorter time frames. They also move, especially in a time of uncertainty, for need-based immediate reasons. They're not thinking 50 years out. And then also a great example of how floodplains affect values and the growth of a city less than you think is New York City. New York City has, 520 miles of coastline and more people living in a flood zone than any other city in the country. And also something like 80% of properties were built before current flood maps, whereas the national average is 20%. So none of this has affected the ability of New York properties to rise tremendously in value over time. And I always laugh when I'm a New Yorker, but when New Yorkers come down here and are concerned about hurricanes and floods, we're actually more in danger of that, or equally in danger of that in New York City as we are in Miami. So that's the answer there. Floodplains have not affected the ability of New York City values to go up in value, and I think the same is going to hold for Miami Beach. And also I will answer, we don't know the future. I don't want to get into discussion on sea level rise, but look, I'm taping this right now on a cell phone. This would have been magic 30 years ago. We don't know what kind of innovations we're going to have in 30, 20 years time that will be able to counteract whatever's coming up. So again, people just really practically speaking most people don't think on time horizons that long when they make their home purchase decision. Next question is from my friend Igor, I believe my countryman. He asks, how do I see the real estate market for investments in the Miami area for the next 1 to 2 years? So I'm not entirely sure what he means by investments, but I will say this. I'm very long-term optimistic on South Florida. And I keep talking about Corona accelerating trends. One of the trends it is accelerating is the migration of peoples into the state of Florida. In 2019, the state of Florida had the highest net migration into it of any state in America, and I only see that continuing, especially with concerns that have become paramount in people's minds during the pandemic. There's a survey released by Zillow or one of those larger portals that the number 1 and 2 factors that people have in mind now when they look for homes are outdoor space and more space to work from indoors. So we have great single-family home markets, which are in some areas right now recording record high sales volume, and of course we have the outdoors. And I don't mean just the outdoors of your house. I mean the outdoors. Our restaurants, our culture, our way of life here is very, very much built around the outside year round. And we have far less density than New York City in places like this. The Miami area is a very healthy place to live. Big difference between now and the last crash is that we've become more of a financial hub now as well. We have technology here. We have high profile companies moving here. We have high profile finance guys moving here. All that was in place. And I see that just accelerating. And I do not wish Corona time on anyone, but in the grand scheme of things, as a relative comparison, this region is going to make out far better than our northern, more dense counterparts. So for the next 1 to 2 years, of course, we are all affected. Every market is affected by high unemployment and so forth. Well, I shouldn't say every market. 1 million plus single family homes are doing great. Industrial is still doing great. But overall, we're seeing a dip in transaction volume. And the deals are out there. If you can spot them, buying towards the bottom of the trough. And what do I mean by that? Markets are cyclical. Let's say residential real estate, condos. If you track the values in a building over a 10 plus year period, and you can get within the bottom 20th percentile of that curve, meaning within 20%, let's say, of the previous bottom, that's not bad. You have upside to enjoy for the next curve up, because there's always a next curve up, just like there's a next curve down. So the deals are out there. You just got to be able to spot them. And again, I'm very long-term optimistic on South Florida. So the next 1 to 2 years, I think it's going to be a great time to step in and invest in the growth and align yourself with the growth of the region. All right, last friend from my friend Claudia in New York. Hey, Claudia. She asks, what's the vibe here on the street? Are people wearing masks? She says people in New York are very scared, etc. So I live in South Beach. Look around the street right now. I see a guy on a bike. His mask is off, but there's nobody near him. Other people are walking wearing a mask. I would say that most people on the street here are wearing masks. However, I will also say there is less anxiety in the air. Simply put, we have proximity to fewer people here. It is far less dense in Miami than it is in New York City. Also, mass transit. While not good from an urban planning point of view, perhaps, Miami residents don't use mass transit nearly at the scale that we do in New York City. And so this is a driving culture. People are less forced to be in cramped subways. There are no subways here. cramped proximity with strangers. So I think overall anxiety levels are far less. Also, we have palm trees, it's beautiful, there's the ocean. So overall anxiety, again, is less. This is a very healthy place. And to tie that back into my previous point, I'm very long-term optimistic on the region. I think that it's God, I really hope, God willing, there's no second wave, but if there is, the contrast will be that much more acute because we do have life around the outdoors here. So far, I think we're making out okay. So fingers crossed, everyone. That's a wrap. Send in your questions. And as I said, next week I'm filming at a cool new location. We'll have guests coming in. I'm filming every Sunday from now on, and I'll be gathering the questions during the week. So wishing everyone an awesome day. Ciao.